It's very expensive to be a player in the Illinois cannabis industry, which is why they took such an issue with hemp as a shortcut to get into selling cannabis or marijuana products, THC products. So as I watched recaps from Ignite It, it was interesting. I'll shout out the Dales report as a source of information where Jim Higdorn from Cornbread Hemp was there, and he called Ignite It an away game compared to the Hemp Beverage Expo, which he considered a home game. And Canna Connect and the Minnesota cannabis industry has a hybrid right now. We have hemp and we have cannabis products. But in some states, like hemp is looked upon, frowned upon from the operator's perspective, where many operators in Minnesota are more okay with hemp because they've been around it. They see the beverage lane and they see the low-dose gummy lane. But hemp is very polarizing, especially right now as we record in June of 2026. There's a looming hemp beverage ban or hemp ban, which includes seeds. It's more than just the gummies and the drinks. So juxtaposing what you saw at Ignite It with what you saw at the Hemp Beverage Expo, like, were those two different trains of thought or two different groups of people in some ways?
Yeah, two different sets of interests, I would say. You're so spot on that Minnesota is a very unique environment. It's the only state in the country where I have seen hemp products, low-dose hemp products, sharing shelves with adult use cannabis in dispensaries.
Yes.
That is incredibly unique. That's something I talked about with a few people at Ignite It. I think that the reason that we have such a favorable group consensus toward hemp here, obviously kind of paved the way in 2021, 2022. This is one of the first markets to start pulling these products into grocery and on-premise settings. But beyond that, I think that it's got some of the most responsible operators. I think there are people coming out of this market and people who have owned this market first that have used it as a proving ground to meet the bar of retailers like Total Wine, of retailers like Target, that have stringent expectations in terms of, packaging, labeling requirements, ingredients.
The back end to get into their systems and things like that.
Yep, absolutely. So I think that we really set that standard here in Minnesota for what the hemp industry could look like and how it could integrate with adult use cannabis in a way that's friendly and favorable.
As well as the alcohol industry.
Absolutely. Yes. So many craft breweries and,
liquor distributors.
Bars built in, liquor distributors, that traditional three-tier distribution system that the alcohol industry has long relied on, and spirits. We need something comparable, if not integration, with those same players. And I think many of them have our same goals in mind.
Yeah.
And different sets of interests, different goals. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of people with a lot more in common than they would think at first.
Hey everybody, Stephen with Canna Connect, taking a quick minute to shout out today's sponsor, CEE. That is the Center for Energy and Environment. If you're not familiar with CEE, they're your one-stop shop for all lighting rebates. If you are in XL Energy territory and you're a micro business, CEE is somebody that you need to talk to. Give Brad a call, give Tony a call, go online, one-stop shop, LED lighting rebates. They'll help take care of up to 60% of the costs associated with your grow and your build-out with the lighting. Really nice people, great people to work with, huge sponsors of Canna Connect, and give them a shout. That's CEE, Center for Energy and Environment. Yeah, and I've come around to that. I think many have come around to it. I mean, when you see Target in Minnesota carrying hemp beverages in 72 stores, all of a sudden they're the largest, if not Quick Trip. Target's like the largest, hemp beverage store brand. It's crazy, but not in a bad way. It's just, if you would have told anyone 5 years ago that Target was going to be carrying hemp beverages in 72 stores, you'd be like, whoa, we are in for a wild ride.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think a lot of the people involved would have done exactly the same things they did. And that's how we got here. We got here because a lot of people bet their careers and bet their resources and, gave us what we were asking for.
Yeah. Let's talk about media activations and event ROI. You're an expert in this space. What advice do you have for brands that are in the cannabis space that are looking at events, looking at media opportunities, looking at activating their brand? Like, where should they start when it comes to putting together a plan?
I think you always want to start at retail. You always want to start giving your first set of customers the best possible service that they can get. They need support to drive velocity. They need help selling through those first few orders. It's very competitive. Lots of options on the shelf, lots of options waiting to get on the shelf if you fall off. So I think it's really important within the first month or two to send boots on the ground, to host some tastings, host some samplings, make sure you have resources at point of sale, whether they're shelf talkers, window clings, something that educates about the product you're selling and why it's different. And I also think if we're talking on premise, if we're talking bars, restaurants, hospitality, training the staff on this category is really important too.
Yes.
Often we are prioritizing educating the consumer when the people on site to continue selling the product when the brand staff leave maybe don't have that education yet because it is one small slice of a large set of products that they sell.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing a lot more emerging resources that are really aiming to solve that problem and standardize that system the way that Tips and ServSafe have for the alcohol industry for quite some time.
That's a great point. Our booths, well, let's see. What are some of the brands that stand out to you that are doing a really good job when it comes to activations?
Let's see.
I mean, Breeze comes to mind from like years past.
Of course. And I think I was so inspired initially in my time at Cann because Cann was doing mobile marketing tours. We had a wrapped van. We were activating everything from block parties to, big ritzy mansion parties in the hills. They were really everywhere. They were on the street and they were up in the clouds. They were all over the place. You could not avoid liquid on lips, getting a can in hand. And I think that's what gave them that staying power and allowed them to duplicate those efforts to other markets and not be brand new when they hit the scene. It's already something someone has heard of, whether on a trip out west or seen some content online or heard about it from a friend or family.
Yeah.
So I think they really crushed it in the beginning. And then we did a lot of great work with Jones and Mary Jones too. We hit a statewide mobile marketing tour. But these days, we're having a great time launching a program in Florida for a brand called Larea.
Okay.
They're more positioned in the recovery and fitness space.
Okay.
So the types of settings that we're entering are completely different. They are run clubs, they're cold plunges, they're yoga festivals, and that's exactly the crowd that this brand speaks to and is positioned toward. So I think that it's all about fit and it's all about thinking about where your people actually are and how you're going to reach them there.
Yeah. I mean, you talked about the ability to train the staff in the four walls of where your product is sold. That's something that I need to do a better job at when it comes to the green standard and us marketing our beverage that we have online right now. And it takes a lot of work, but like there's a tremendous opportunity because retail scales. But you have to make sure that your boots on the ground are educated and can speak to the product. Otherwise, it's just going to sit on the shelf. And that's the scariest part is if it doesn't sell, you're going to get you're not going to be in business. If you're not moving units, you're not going to be in business.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's true. So, I'm rather optimistic that we're going to have some sort of fix to the hemp program. I don't think it's going to be perfect. I think Mitch McConnell sits in the way with a lot of this stuff, even if it does go offline temporarily. But Minnesota is set up for hemp. They've defined hemp, and I believe that we will see continuation of hemp products, but nobody really knows what's going to happen between the federal ban and the state rule. And, it causes a lot of concern for breweries which are producing these products. And like, I'm not necessarily asking for a crystal ball, but like, where are you at with hemp beverages and like leaving the Hemp Beverage Expo? Do you have any thoughts following that? Because there seemed to be a lot of optimism at the Hemp Beverage Expo despite the ban.
You have to ask for what you need. You have to assume the best. I think it's a degree of manifestation taking place. The optimism is palpable. And I understand that there's a lot of resources invested here. There's a lot of time, blood, sweat, tears. So optimism right now is our only choice. I think a defeatist attitude would not do any of us any good, nor would taking our feet off the gas, because imagine we get exactly what we're hoping for. If you took your foot off the gas, now you're behind.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think there's just a positive vibe in the air, and there are little bits of information coming through that are promising,
Yeah.
but it's still a very stressful time. And there are some brands taking the opposite approach, kind of clutching their pearls,
Right.
kind of holding back a little bit until that November date to find out what their fate really is.
Yeah.
But I think that, you know, the brands I most admire are not slowing down at all. They're very confident that there's a path through for us, even if not by November, eventually, because that's not, you know, there's nothing set in stone. There's a lot of reconsideration being done, and there are a lot of people being very loud and showing up again and again and again
taking
on
shots
all of our behalf about what we need. And you talk about how operators have a difficult time pulling their time from their operation to attend a trade show. The same is true for these lobbying and bill writing efforts and meetings of the mind where these conversations are taking place.
Right.
So I have the utmost respect for those advocating on all of our behalf to make sure those regulations reflect what we actually need to continue on in these businesses.
The C-suites of these hemp-based companies are pouring hours and hours in every week. It's a distraction from what their core goal is. However, they have no choice. If the hemp ban goes into effect, it could seriously affect their business, and already probably has. But I appreciate you calling that out, because the folks that are truly making their money from the supplements, the beverages, the gummies, the edibles, those types of products, like, through the Hemp Beverage Expo, through the Hemp Leadership Roundtable, through a many of different organizations that are focused on the hemp space, like, it is a tremendously scary time. Canna Connect is able to navigate both on the hemp and cannabis side, because we're non-plant touching and we don't hold a license on either side. So I think in some ways we've carved out a good niche, and we appreciate our partners like Earl Giles that are able to produce products on our behalf. And we want to keep producing products no matter which way the hemp ban goes at the end of the year. You know, let's take a little bit of a step back. Let's shed a little light on NECAN Minnesota, NECAN Minneapolis. You know, that weekend was Art World weekend. You had some activations going on. Like, what stood out to you within the Minnesota hemp space, the Minnesota cannabis industry, from a aim and fire standpoint as you were activating on the ground, both at NECAN and following NECAN as well?
What was interesting is that I think Earlo Whirl was as solid of a networking opportunity for us as NECAN. NECAN was a great opportunity, but afterwards there was a different mix of brands out there. We had some tea, we had some kava drinks, we had a little bit more variety than what you see on the floor. And we, similarly to Canna Connect, are non-denominational. We are not a plant-touching business, and we also don't serve any particular lane of industry. It's not always snack, beverage, CPG. Sometimes we're working with tech products, beauty products, you know, travel brands, all types of things. So we really like a setting where there are diverse sponsors and activations coming to the table, especially when those are smaller businesses that are still founder-led, that are working on scaling those brands either further out into Minnesota from the cities or to other markets. So that resulted in a lot of really good conversations. Not to mention, Earl Giles knows how to throw a party, and there was a beautiful stage, space to consume. One of the first few licensed consumption events in the city of Minneapolis, which is true of every consumption event that we have these days. It's in the first few. So I think that attention to detail and attention to regulatory confines and attention to inspectors and making sure that they see what they need to see is more important now in Minnesota than ever, because it's really making the first impression for all of us.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, sometimes the after parties or the additional parties are often better opportunities than the shows. Like, to me, there's aspects of the traditional conference trade show that is turning into a little bit of a relic or a dinosaur. And some of it's confined to the space. You know, we're in the River Center today. You can hear it's very echoey in here. It's very loud, and there aren't that many people here. You know, so like, I like the more intimate, curated style events. That's where Canna Connect is moving towards, because we have no issue. We have no aspirations of becoming a CannaCon or a Lucky Leaf and going to these shows around the country. We're very much committed to the Minnesota market. We think there's tremendous opportunity within, and only at this time 240 licensees are online, so that's less than 10%. And they have yet to have large events in Brainerd, Duluth, or Moorhead, and also like the whole southern half of the state is still wondering when are there going to be events in Mankato or Rochester or Albert Lea. So what I'm leaning into this year and even into next year is Minnesota, and we'll see how things come along, because Wisconsin still doesn't have a medical cannabis program. Iowa doesn't have an adult use recreational program. And the Dakotas are, on medical cannabis, but it's very limited right now. So, and Wisconsin, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, there's tremendous opportunity within the surrounding states, but for now, I think there's so much more to figure out within Minnesota that's where our efforts are at.
Absolutely. And it's the reason that I keep showing up here when I live on the West Coast. I'm from Wisconsin originally, but I've been coming to Minnesota at least quarterly for the last 3 years because I feel the same way. I think there's something really special happening here.
Yeah.
There's something really special in the air between the operators that's very different than what we experience at the stage that we're in California.
Yeah.
So I agree with you,
Awesome.
and I'll be showing up.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, looking ahead, like what are you looking to do more of, and how can you support the Minnesota cannabis industry?
Definitely. We do a lot of one-off support. Some of our clients will call us a few times a year for particular trade shows. They may call us for Natural Products Expo West and the World Coffee Expo down in San Diego, and that is all they're calling us for.
Sure.
We really love stable market management. We love to be the third-party partner, basically owning the field and trade side of the marketing efforts.
Okay.
So we become the execution partner to which your sales and marketing team can delegate, which is really valuable for small teams, maybe founder-led teams or teams where only leadership is in place for sales and marketing.
Yeah.
So you can strategize and plan all day, but if you do, you're going to be a little too tired to also execute.
Right.
So there's only so many hours in the week, and a lot of people at the early stage in startups are stretched beyond their 40 hours.
Sure.
And we can give them a little bit of that bandwidth back and take the burden of smaller lifts or large lifts, even if they're sporting festival sponsorship activations or trade shows. We are here as a resource to help support those things, and we would always love to do more of it. Basically, what we want to do is we want to find the right people to be in the right places on behalf of the right brands.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. And how do folks get in touch with Aim and Fire if they're looking to learn more?
Yeah, we are active on LinkedIn. We're active on Instagram. There's a lot of visual reference to what we're doing out there, and it's very visually engaging. There's a lot you can click through in terms of case studies to see the types of settings where we can be useful. I think it's much wider than people often assume when they first hear about this, or may call us a staffing agency.
Sure.
That isn't really what we are at the end of the day. Staffing is a piece of what we're providing, but we're providing infrastructure and field execution systems for you to duplicate those efforts and take them much further.
Amazing. And before we go, let's talk about your new logo.
Yeah, so I have come this far. I've come 4 years on a very, very,
rudimentary, basic,
entry level job. And I think that one of the reasons that I coasted so far on that is because we're not often taking the spotlight. We're not often taking the attention. We don't ever pop up and appear on our own behalf because we're popping up and appearing on clients' behalf.
Yeah.
And when they see the strength of the work that we deliver on behalf of the brand clients, it doesn't so much matter what we look like in terms of our logo and those things. But
really, good on you for innovating and saying, hey, I wanna re-up my logo and take it to the next level.
I got to a point where I started to understand our identity better, and I started to understand what makes us different than our competitors, and really wanted to lean into a vibe about us and what we are. We're utility, right? We're not fluff, we're not glitz, we're not glamour. We are utility. We've got the tools, and we're on the ground. So I think that's what the new brand communicates. There's a lot of the types of colors that you'll see in signage that leads you through the world. It's your oranges, your yellows, your greens. And that's very intentional because those things are often overlooked, but they're what gets everybody where they're going.
Sure.
So there's a lot of thought that went into it, and we're happy to have an image that now suits the level that we work at a little better. It's really exciting to evolve and to feel that you have room to grow into new versions of yourself or of a company.
Yes, absolutely. Selfishly, I'm going to ask you a question. What do you like about Canna Connect?
I love a lot of things about Canna Connect. Number one, I love the team. You guys are really good people, each in your own respect, and you don't often find a team where everybody's a gem. I think you all own your lane. You all respect each other to the nth degree, and you can feel that in the way that you speak about one another and the way that you engage. I also really love that there was no pretext. You were really, really open to meeting with me, to understanding what we do, to advocating for what we do, and to connecting me with other people who might need it or might be able to do the same.
Hell yeah.
And that is what it's all about. I think there are a lot of groups and resources that will make those claims, but at the end of the day, it's them and it's theirs, and nobody else is going to receive the benefits of what's written down on paper. And I see you guys really letting the merit of those involved speak for itself and giving everybody a platform to be heard and to represent the piece that they aim to be in this puzzle, because the puzzle is massive and there are lots of small pieces, right? And I think that everybody from the entry level to the C-suite who wants to be a piece of that puzzle should have a platform to connect with others, to find mentorship, to find people that they can help guide to greater places. So I think you guys are really just poised and ready to be that resource for the wider Minnesota community and for people coming into the Minnesota market that need to understand who they should be talking with, for what reason, and vice versa.
Amazing. Amazing. I appreciate your support. I appreciate your companionship and ability to be a sounding board for ideas as we continue to invent within the space. You know, building media events and products within the Minnesota cannabis space, that's what we're focused on doing. And there's a lot of room in the space. There's not a full out industry, right? This is still very craft. It's fragmented. You have a couple medical companies, you have 4 or 5 tribes that are producing flower, and you have a lot of cultivators that are looking to be more online, but then there's a ton of backlog in the testing. That's been an issue since the beginning of this industry here, the beginning of the market here. So we're going to continue to evaluate and innovate where we see fit. And, you know, having you on the show today and being able to get your message out there and be able to put this out as soon as like next week, right? We're trying to be on the ground and quick with our media so that we're not sitting on content for a long time, because people are looking for content. They're looking to learn more about what's going on. And we appreciate you being on the show today.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here. And I'm glad that you said that, because there are media efforts I've participated in, gone far out of my way for, offered time to, that I've not seen the content from to this day, that happened years ago. So I know that you guys are not one and the same, and that you're keeping it real time. So this information is actually relevant to the people listening. Relevant and also, you know, evergreen. It's going to be something that people can look back on and see what was going on at that time and hear from the people actually involved. So
amazing.
I love it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And we're looking forward to tonight, Earl Giles dinner party followed by the after party. And we're bringing the green standard out in multiple forms: tahine rim, non-dosed, cocktail, mocktail. Choose your lane, take your lane and go down it. The green standard is more than a drink. It's a platform for beverage and hospitality innovation. So
I agree. I truly love it. It tastes delicious. It smells really good too. That's my favorite part, is the smell.
No doubt.
It goes a long way.
Yes. Terpenes.
Yeah,
yes,
for sure.
Well, looking forward to continuing to stay in touch, and appreciate you stopping by the Canna Connect Show.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for everything that you do for us.
No doubt. Shout out to Open Window and shout out to What Rebates. We are signing off with Tara Falk live from CannaCon Season 2, Episode 1. The Canna Connect Show is back.